Hi, my name is Chris Brennan, and this is episode 23 of the Auspicious Elections Podcast. So today is Tuesday, October 30th, 2018, starting at 3:55 p.m. Joining me today, as always, is Lisa Scheim.
Hi, Chris.
Hello. So we're actually doing this episode, if you're listening to the audio version, in our living room for the first time, where I've set up a makeshift new podcast studio. And this is actually our first episode doing a sort of test run to test it out.
Yeah, and if you're watching it on the video, this is obviously really novel. This is the first time we've been in the same screen instead of two split screens from different rooms. So
Yeah, so now we can throw things at each other while we're recording the episode.
yeah, that's a definite plus.
Right, that's
Yeah.
really what this is all about. All right, so what we're going to do here today, as usual, this is episode 23. If this is your first time joining us, what we're going to do is go through at least 4 of the most auspicious electional charts that we were able to find this month for starting different types of ventures and undertakings using the principles of electional astrology. And how many charts do we have this month?
We have 4 basic ones with 1 rising sign variant on one of them.
Okay, so 4 charts with 1 variant. And these times are set for local time, so you should be able to use the dates that we give you and then recreate the same chart using roughly the same time in your location. So don't do any time zone conversions or anything like that, or you shouldn't have to for most of them. Just try to make it so that the degree of the ascendant is about the same as what we have in our example charts for each recommended election.
Mm-hmm. And then just set it for your local, for where you are, and just make sure that the same moon applications are still happening as a double check.
Right. All right. So let's try pulling up an actual chart and let's see what they look
All
like.
right,
So let's go on to election number 3 then.
Okay. So election number 3 is November 10th.
All right. Let me animate the chart. So
Yep.
November 10.
November 10th, around 7:57 a.m. So that's going to be a Sagittarius rising chart. I believe this is the highlighted chart of the month on the forecast episode. And this is when we get to right after the Jupiter ingress into Sagittarius. So that last chart was the last hurrah for Jupiter and Scorpio, and now we move into Jupiter and Sag.
My Scorpio t-shirt is sad about that.
Right. Most people are excited, but yes, there are a few selected people who are.
I mean, you don't have to say it like that.
Right.
All right.
Okay, so this one, this was the highlighted election. So this is Jupiter just after it ingressed into Sagittarius. So we've got a Sagittarius rising chart with Jupiter in its own sign in a day chart, which is pretty novel after this whole past year. Then the moon is in later Sagittarius. What?
Novel. I mean, it's okay.
Well, just that we can. No, that was neutral qualitatively. It is novel that we can use Sagittarius rising while the ruler is in its own sign.
How dare you?
So, anyway, this is the part where we should be throwing things at each other.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sagittarius rising. The moon is in later Sagittarius. In the first house, it is applying by sextile to Venus in Libra in the 11th house. And I checked to see if you could at all possibly get the moon Jupiter. It's like for 5 minutes, like 5 clock minutes, moon applies to Jupiter.
Yeah, and that's not going to work in all locations.
No, not at all. So couldn't do that. So moon applying to sextile to Venus in the 11th, which is pretty nice. And then a sextile to Mars right after that. Mercury, you'll notice, is a little bit more focal in this election because by putting Sagittarius rising, Mercury is retrograde or about to be retrograde in Sagittarius. And so it makes the Mercury and Neptune angular. It's approaching by about 3 degrees at this point. Yeah, about 3 degrees. So, it's getting close. But as I mentioned earlier, you're not going to really avoid that at all this month. It's just a matter of how much.
Right.
And it's not retrograde yet. It's about to be, but it's not yet.
And you picked the time on this one so that the ascendant would be early conjunct Jupiter, but also, at least here in Denver, the midheaven is sextile the sun exactly in order to mitigate it a bit from that 12th house position.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes on both of those. So the midheaven might not do that where you are, so just double check the chart and see.
Yeah, it's really going to depend on your location, but a lot of people, some people should be able to get early Sagittarius rising with the midheaven around 18 degrees if you just try to adjust it and see if you can get that in your location.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then it's not imperative that you get the specific like 3 degrees rising. So, you can play with that a little bit if you need to in order to get the midheaven better.
Right. All right. And this chart has Mars in the 3rd house. So that's the major downside.
Yeah. So things involving siblings or maybe like buying a car or things involving coursework, education or teaching or speaking may not be the best election for that. That would be kind of the downside of that one.
Right. Short distance travel.
Travel, yeah.
Saturn in the 2nd is not super great for finances initially, and it would indicate the development of financial and material matters slowly and perhaps with some difficulties at first, but eventually in the long term, it becomes more of a strength or something that works out positively, but it might take longer than expected.
Yeah, definitely. I would say this is a better financial chart than the previous ones.
It's interesting how prominent, though, that Neptune is down there by the IC when we have 18, the midheaven at 18 Virgo and the Neptune at 13 Pisces.
I know.
But it's hidden. It's like in that most hidden part of the chart in the 4th house about like the foundation and the home, whatever the foundation of your election is, having something like mysterious or nebulous about it.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to say actually that I didn't yet about the overall feel of the month is that in addition to Jupiter and Saturn elections being stronger than Mercury, because Mercury is so tied up in all that nebulousness this month and, potentially miscommunications with the retrograde, I feel like the elections this month are much better suited for things that are involving like enthusiasm or things like that, like excitement, like things that you're trying to build excitement for that aren't very seriously dependent on hard facts. I mean, because there are things that you want to do that are like that. It's not to say that you want to use these to lie, but it's just things that their focus of the activity is more about enthusiasm rather than specifics.
Yeah, on the forecast episode, we had some keyword about like the power of optimism with just Jupiter and Sagittarius in general. But yeah, this is, the other piece of that. Sometimes running or coasting on optimism or having an overabundance of optimism, but there maybe being not as much support underneath it to build on as one might hope.
Yeah.
The other thing about the 4th house in electional astrology traditionally is like it's the end of the matter. And so there might be something about the end of the matter that's like nebulous or unclear, which could be positive or negative. It doesn't necessarily have to go either way.
Well, I mean, I think one of the upshots for elections this month is you can't get rid of those factors. Some of them will be, more focused. Some of the charts have a little bit more focus on them than others, but it's going to be in all the electional charts this month. So if you need to do something that's highly dependent on concrete facts being very clear and things like that, this isn't really the month to do that.
Sure. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. It's a time to wait if you want to do that.
All right. So that's pretty much chart number 3. Do we have what, 2 more?
Yeah.
Okay.